Hello, welcome. I just wanted to record some of my favorite Christmas stories with you in case you like to hear Christmas stories yourself, and for my own children, whenever they want to hear the stories, if they don't have the book with them or next to them, it's always here available. All right, let's get started. It's with Family Christmas Treasures. It's a compilation of different Christmas stories, so it's just snippets of the stories, not the full stories, and you're probably familiar with many of them. Edited by Kacey Barron and published by Hugh Lauter Levin Associates, Inc. And throughout the book, I really enjoy they have copies of old painting pictures from Europe and America. This one's from 1955. And the first story is from the Nutcracker, a little snippet in there. The first section is called The Christmas Preparations and Anticipation. So from the Nutcracker, E.T.A. Hoffman. On the 24th of December, Dr. Stahlbaum's children were not allowed to set foot in the small family parlor, much less the adjoining company parlor, not at any time during the day. Fritz and Marie sat huddled together in a corner of the little back room. An eerie feeling came over them when dusk fell, and, as usual on Christmas Eve, no light was brought in. In whispers, Fritz told his younger sister, she had just turned 7, that since early morning he had heard murmuring and shuffling and muffled hammered blows in the locked room. In a short while before, he confided, a small, dark man had crept down the hallway with a big box under his arms, and he, Fritz, felt pretty sure that this could only be Godfather Drosselmeyer, and that Marie clapped her little hands for joy, and cried out, "Oh, what do you think Godfather Drosselmeyer has made for us?" Judge Drosselmeyer was anything but handsome. He was short and very thin. His face was seamed with wrinkles. He had a big black patch where his right eye should have been, and he had no hair at all, for which reason he wore a beautiful white wig, a real work of art. And Judge Drosselmeyer was himself a skilled craftsman, able to make and repair clocks. When one of the fine clocks in the Stahlbaum house was sick and unable to sing, Godfather Drosselmeyer would come over, remove his glass wig and yellow coat, and put on a blue apron. For a while, he would stick sharp instruments into the clock. Little Marie felt real pain at the sight, but it didn't hurt the clock at the least. On the contrary, it came back to life, made everyone happy by whirring and striking and singing merrily. Whenever he came, he had something in his pocket for the children. Now a little man who would roll his eyes and bow in a most comical way, now a box that a little bird would hop out of, now something else. But every year at Christmas he took great pains to turn out a work of wonderful artistry, so precious that the children's parents always put it in a safe place. "Oh," Marie cried out, "what do you think Godfather Drosselmeyer has made for us?" Fritz said it was sure to be a fortress, with all kinds of soldiers marching up and down, drilling, and then other soldiers would come and get in, but the brave defenders would fire their guns, which would boom and thunder wonderfully. "No, no," Marie interrupted. "Godfather Drosselmeyer said something to me about a beautiful garden with a big lake in it, and lovely swans with golden necklaces swimming around on it, and singing the most beautiful songs. And then a little girl comes across the garden to the lake and calls the swans and feeds them marzipan." "Swans don't eat marzipan," said Fritz rather rudely. "And besides, Godfather Drosselmeyer can't make a whole garden. And anyway, what good are his toys to us? They always get taken away before we know it. I like the things Mama and Papa give us a lot better, because we can keep them and do what we like with them." Then the children tried to guess what their parents would give them this time. Marie remarked that Mistress Trude, her big doll, had changed for the worse. Clumsier than ever, she kept falling on the floor, which always left nasty marks on her face, and no amount of scolding would help. She just couldn't keep her clothes clean. Marie also remembered how Mamma had smiled at her for being so delighted with her doll, Gretchen's little parasol. Fritz, on the other hand, observed that, as his father was well aware, a decent chestnut horse was needed for his royal stables, and that his army had no cavalry at all. So the children knew that their parents had bought them all sorts of lovely presents and were busy imagining them. But they were just as certain that the Christ child was looking on with their tender, loving eyes, and that Christmas gifts, because he had blessed them, gave more pleasure than any others. The children who kept whispering about the presents they expected were reminded of this by their elder sister Louise, who had added that it was always the Christ child who, by the hands of their dear parents, brought children things that would give them true enjoyment, since he knew what those would be better than the children themselves. So, big sister Louise went on, instead of hoping and wishing for all sorts of things, they should wait quietly like well-behaved children for whatever the Christ child would bring. Marie sat deep in thought, but Fritz muttered, "All the same, I'd like a chestnut horse and some hussars." By then it was very dark. Fritz and Marie pressed close together, afraid to say another word. They had a feeling that gentle winds were passing over, and they seemed to hear beautiful music in the distance. When a flash of brightness flitted across the wall, they knew it was the Christ child flying away on glowing clouds to other happy children. At that moment, a silvery bright bell rang ding-a-ling. The doors flew open, and such a flood of light streamed in from the big parlor that the children cried out, "Oh, oh!" and stood stock still on the threshold. Papa and Mamma appeared in the doorway, took their children by hand, and said, come in, dear children, and see what the Christ child has brought you." Leave it to your imaginations, and we will share another story up next.